Dave, you know why I love using Zencastr?
Is it because the recording quality is better than other methods of recording a podcast virtually?
Nope.
Is it because they offer a free version for hobbyists just getting started?
No, not that.
Is it because it's super easy to use for everyone and none of our guests have ever had an issue using it?
That's not it.
Is it because they offer automatic post-production and transcription services?
Negative.
Stop burying the lead. Why do you love Zencastr?
It's because Zencastr is all of the things you just said, Dave. Well, and they sponsor this pod. That's right, Adventures in Collecting is powered by Zencastr. How about your pod? Get started now with Zencastr and use our code to start podcasting today. Visit Zencastr.com/pricing and use promo code AICPOD to get 30% off your first 3 months of their professional plan or try it for free. That's Zencastr.com/pricing and use promo code AICPOD.
Hiya, moms and dads. Adventures in Collecting is about toys, but it might not be for your children, especially if you don't like words like or or hole.
Are you ready, kids? Get your parents' permission, check your mailbox, and grab your shopping cart. It's time for the Adventures in Collecting podcast.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Dave. Welcome to Adventures in Collecting, where we talk toy news, culture, and hauls.
Along with our journeys as collectors. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Adventures in Collecting.
Hi,
Dave,
Eric.
we are back.
We are. You paused like I did for the we are back. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean,
you're going to confuse people.
I had to. I mean, we are brothers after all. There's, genetics at play here.
Yeah, if we've not confused you all by now, then
And you just haven't been paying attention.
or
you're
you
brand
wouldn't
new
realize this is episode 99.
99, Dave. Episode. Well, so
It's the Bradley Wright Phillips or Gretzky episode.
and it is our 99th numbered episode. So we have had more than 100 episodes. For those of you that are gonna come at us, this is
be
the
like
99th.
those news things are episodes.
It's real to me. But this is our 99th episode. And as you mentioned, our Bradley Wright Phillips, our Wayne Gretzky episode. I don't know what you call the 100th episode, but what we call the 100th episode.
It also means we have to tag them now on Instagram. When
Did we? I mean, Bradley probably pays attention. I doubt Gretzky does. He's got way too much going on. But our next episode, our 100th episode, actually happens to also fall on our annual Christmas spectacular, and we have some things planned. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am not going to do something else.
Yeah, you can't bury two leads in one episode.
Yeah, no, can't do that. So I mean, I feel like I've probably started out an episode with this before, but it applies to today's episode very well. So I'm going to say it again. If we've said it once or potentially twice, we've said it a million times, and that's what's old is new again. And today's guest is the creator of something that truly embodies that. 9 to 5 Warriors is a nostalgic-fueled 90s-inspired toy line that harkens back to the days before the internet, where the story unfolded on TV, in commercials, on paper in comics, and on toy card backs, and played out on living room floors. We'd like to welcome Brandon, creator of 9 to 5 Warriors, to the show. Brandon, welcome to Adventures in Collecting.
Hello. Thank you for having me on, and congrats to 99, man. That's a huge achievement in podcasts. I don't think people realize how much work goes into making episodes.
Well, thank you. And you're now officially part of our history. So,
I greatly appreciative of it. Thank you for having me on. What's up, Dave?
Hi, what's going on?
as this is a show about collecting, before we get into get into the toy line, tell us, what are you currently collecting?
Oh man, so my collection is honestly super eclectic. It's truly like whatever like triggers some sort of nostalgic feeling or something for design inspiration. But honestly, I have everything from like Star Wars, WWF, like Tamagotchis, freaking Exo Squad, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, Ninja Turtles, of course. I'm looking around the room. Batman, RoboCop, like anything that was just like definitely from the 90s and part of my childhood, I somehow have managed to order drunkenly, usually on eBay. And it shows up in my room. And I'm like, what is this? It's a Christmas surprise each time I open it.
Yeah, don't. I like. I try to stay away from eBay, but I like to say don't drink in Mercari. Don't, because that. Or Dave, you've been doing a lot of the whatnotting. So
Yeah, don't
Oh,
don't
it's addicting.
don't whatnot and Mercari and eBay while you have a broken bone.
yeah, yeah, that too. That's a loaded sentence.
Oh
Um,
boy, was it.
so you have an eclectic collection. What's something recent that you picked up?
Oh, this is embarrassing, actually. Uh, a Tickle Me Elmo. It's super random.
All right,
So the
like an
reason I
OG
picked,
one,
yeah, yeah,
one from like the original run of them.
exactly. So the reason I picked that up is I saw like a viral video going around, and I'm like, shit, that was like, to my recollection, I might be wrong, but like to my memory, that was like the true original viral sensation toy that I'm not talking about like Star Wars. Yes, people are excited, lined up, but like where people trampled one another or did some messed up things to get their hands on it, kind of thing. And I felt like that spurred, other fads, like whether it's Beanie Babies. I could be completely wrong on timing, but to my recollection as a kid, I remember Tickle Me Elmo being the hottest item of like 96, And I didn't even have it.
It was. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I was
think
gonna say the ultimate '90s toy, to be honest.
Mm.
I think timing wise, it was definitely one of the first. I think the like original Bandai Red Power Ranger might have been before it, because I think that's what Jingle All the Way ended up being based on. Like, was
Mhm.
like the hype behind that figure,
It was close.
but
They're
they
all
were
like
really
roughly the
close.
same
Yeah.
time. Even
And that's
Beanie Babies, like they're all
that was what's
same
cool
ballpark.
is like I remember that happening, and then like every hot toy just kind of became like that sensation, like everyone chasing it. So yeah, I randomly picked that one up definitely after seeing some random video and like kind of was probably tipsy. I was like, why not? I get it now. I'm like, this is so stupid. It's such an eyesore.
I will never forget. So my like weird Tickle Me Elmo memory. I will never forget going to midnight mass on Christmas Eve, and for some reason, the priest at our church that we grew up going to, and he gave his sermon about Tickle Me Elmo, and it was about how Christmas like isn't about material things; it's about family and all that. But like he kept going back to the like wild popularity of Tickle Me Elmo, and for whatever reason, I like and like full disclosure, like not like a religious adult, but like for whatever reason, anytime I hear Tickle Me Elmo, I think of that weird sermon from that year, and it just immediately brings me back to that weird moment sitting there exhausted at our like local church hearing about Tickle Me Elmo and just wanting to go home.
See,
This guy,
that was like high school, so I just think of like that to me was like, and I didn't have a car or anything, so I had no way of doing this, but my friends that did, that was like the first flipping opportunity.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
That's what I remember. That's why like I was like that was such a unique part of history. And yeah, like I said, my collection's like all about that. Just random things that like trigger something and like I want that.
But that was like pre-eBay, so people like
Mhm.
kids listening, this there was no internet to sell this on. Like it was like ads in the paper
shady guy in a parking lot,
Yeah,
Yeah.
trunks filled with.
Tickle Me Elmos. And like I don't know how they did it, but they did it. Like you think now it's like we were talking like, Mercari and stuff, and then it was just like, yeah, here's like sign on a telephone pole.
We got the Elmo.
yeah. I have to go meet this guy. He's in a '92 Camry in the back of Willowbrook Mall, and he's gonna be there at 6 a.m. Gotta go get my Tickle Me Elmo.
Like it like Jingle All the Way, like that's kind of accurate in a way.
100%.
There was just like people meeting up places and you know, basically flipping Tickle Me Elmos and Furbies and junk.
Yes, the Furbies, another part of my collection.
So we've now talked about the journey to Tickle Me Elmo coming back into the collection. But how about your journey into launching your own toy line?
All right, so launching my own toy line coincided with like starting to collect my toys. And at the time, it was like a legitimate reason I gave myself to buy said toys, like for inspiration and design, aesthetics and just understanding like what made a great toy. So for me, when I started collecting and I started just having these like flashes of like freaking nostalgia like hitting my body, I was just like, this was so amazing. Like these toys really sparked something in me. And my background is in film and digital productions. So it's my job to like know how to convey emotions through video. And for me, it was the first time to experience that through a physical product. And I was like, what is this? Like, and I want to make a toy. Like there was, I'm not gonna lie, as a kid, there was always something kind of like in me that I kind of wanted to make a toy. I'd watch commercials and be like, that's weird. Like I would sell it like this. Like, I don't know. My brain was wired differently as a kid, but there's definitely an itch that I wanted to make a toy. And once flash forward to like 25, 26, once I started collecting, that just took over. And I was like, I got to make this and I got to create that feeling for the next generation growing up.
So you mentioned, the '90s several times, as being part
Mhm.
of, the era that like you kind of cut your teeth on when it came to toys and kind of design. So outside of just being like a familiar space for you, what drew you to kind of the '90s aesthetic when you decided to make 9 to 5 Warriors?
Honestly, yeah, like when I look back at my collection, it's just bright colors. I'll say this honestly, and I know a lot of people say this about their generation and all that, but really it feels true that back then, whether it was the companies, the toy companies, they experimented and they had such a huge sense of creativity. And I felt like they weren't scared to make those like those I'm losing my mind. They weren't scared to take those chances and like throw shit on the wall and see what stuck. And today I feel like it's so quick to like look at the data and make sure you're riding on a trend and like look at tech and like see how it's coinciding with behavior. Oh, people are leaning towards blue. Let's make this. Like it's such a science now rather than like I made this because I fucking wanted to and it's a cool thing. It's a cool idea. And then that brings attention. And to me, now I see like all these like toy companies, like no shade, I get it. Like you want to remake things, you want to re-release them because there's already a built-in audience that's, taking in what that generation did, which was like build that story around those characters, really connect you deeply to that. So of course, yeah, you have X amount of millions to spend or whatever X amount of budget to spend on a toy. It makes sense to not spend that as much on marketing. You want to just jump into either reusing some molds that you have or, diving deep into an already set fan base. So truly like 90s to me is just like the last era, I guess, because honestly before that, like with 70s, 60s, whatever, like there's just so much creativity flowing through all the industries.
And I think too, like, like you said, like there was the '90s was a time of experimentation, even with, some of those, familiar properties. Like I think of like, when I think of the '90s, one of the first toy lines that comes to my mind is always the Kenner Batman. And I
Mhm.
mean, the most interesting Batman figures were the ones that weren't in a comic book, weren't in the
Yes.
movie. They had like, the weird gold and black suit, and like the Arctic Batman and like all of like the, incredible gadgets that they came with. Now everyone is very, especially in those types of properties, right? Like the Batmans, the MCUs, the even the comic Marvel Legends. They're so concerned with accuracy and like it having to represent this thing that exists, and like this detail's not right because you know this artist drew it one way, or in order to get the figure out in time they only had storyboard art and it ended up not being screen accurate, and people get so hung up on that. Whereas we all grew up in a time where we wanted, like, sure, we wanted the like all black Batman with the yellow and black logo to have the one that was in the movie, but like when it snowed outside here in New Jersey, we wanted Arctic Batman to go play in the backyard with, like
I love it.
Or
It's
like the
funny.
green Batman, or like the gold one. Like there were
yeah,
Batman of every color.
yeah.
It's so good. Funny you mentioned the Arctic. So I got the Arctic Batman right
There
here.
it is.
And this was like probably the third figure I bought in my collection because it just sparked so much memories of like, I remember taking this guy in the bathtub and like the way that, the top piece goes over, it just made me think of it like an Aquanaut or something.
Yeah, scuba
And
gear.
yeah,
Mhm.
and I just like that's what was cool about that era. It was just it allowed kids to and adults, whoever, like just spark imagination. Like there's something about all that creativity that like transferred from who was making it to whoever was playing with it. And when I say like 9 to 5 Warriors is a 90s inspired action figure aiming to recapture the Saturday morning cartoon era, that's what I'm talking about, is like resparking imagination, and I'm trying to put that energy into the toys. There's thought and reason behind all the design aesthetics, limiting it to the 5 point articulation at the moment. I'm totally open to making more articulations down the line, but like out the gate, I just wanted to stay true to what I knew as a kid I played with. And I look back at some of those toys, like Ninja Turtles, for instance. I made a joke like I hadn't played with like a Ninja Turtles until again I started collecting, and it blew my mind that they didn't bend at the elbows or knees. And I was like, what? I was doing backflips with these dudes. And like, I remember so much. I can remember them sitting in cars and everything else. And I look now and it's like, just twisted the wrist, if anything.
Yep.
Yeah, and you talk about design. The design of these figures are unique, but somehow also very familiar. So what was the thought process in defining their overall looks?
So yeah, I mean, I'm collecting all these toys now. I'm spitballing my ideas, and I've got like things I take from people that I like. I love Slimer's grin and Slimer's, aesthetic. And, you might not look at Brigadier Bouncy and be like, oh, that's Slimer. But there's elements that I loved about Slimer that was super expressive, with big mouth, big wide eyes, that I'm like, I think he would make a cool toy. And, like I just was inspired by different things. And when I worked with one artist to bring the illustrations to life, like I just remember mentioning things like very expressive through the eyes, like certain facial features that again pull from things I like, whether it be movies or actors. I just started pulling from things that like I really resonated with. But then the real magic, I think, like what's cool is that they look really toyetic, I guess is that cheesy way of saying it. But that comes down to Scott Hensey, which is one of the designers on the team for sculpting these guys. And the familiarity of that all it comes from this guy literally sculpted half of my collection. And
Mm-hmm.
every single time I speak to him, I'm like, son of a bitch, you sculpted that too? Exo Squad? How's that possible? How did you do that? Like he ends up doing everything that I loved. And it was just by destiny. Like I literally found him randomly and we hit it off, and he's brought those characters from the sketches to what you see them now.
We had no idea that Scott was involved in this project. This is now the second time his name has popped up on this show.
Hmm.
Who else did he work with?
Dollar Slice Bootlegs,
Oh yeah,
with the Slice City Rebels.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, second time Scott has popped up and as a creative on this show. But I mean that explains it. With a pedigree like Scott's,
Hmm.
bringing those illustrations to life the way that he's been doing for man for a
Longer than
long
all of
time.
us.
Yeah.
And
it's incredible.
another sculptor I worked with was Seba from Planetary Dog Toys, and you guys might know him from Plunderlings line.
Ah,
So
yes.
I found like working with Scott leaves you with some limitations as far as like just to make a toy is like really freaking complicated, and like the factories, they need certain files or things sent to them. And with Scott, I literally just have that one hand sculpted prototype. So it's kind of like my baby. I got to make sure it's safe. Like it's my paint master. It's everything. But it also comes with some flaws of like it didn't, the what he can do by hand needed to be cleaned up, digitally to some degree. So I worked with like a local company that literally digitally scanned everything he did, retained the details like so spot on. Then I had to hire Seba to clean them up. And then once I started working with Seba, I found that like such an awesome balance of like, holy shit, way more expensive and not unnecessary, by the way. But this is all self-funded. So I'm like, fuck, I hate this. But I'm like, this is awesome. And it's worth it. I know it'll play off in the end. So I'm like, I'm working with Scott. He's doing his thing, freaking years of experience, knocking out these characters, scanning them, working with Seba. And then Seba, certain characters, I'm like, I need you to just take full control of, because Scotchy's got a like working mechanism of as a Scotch tape, dispenser. That's got to be precise. Scott's not going to be able to do that. And he ended up doing 4 characters completely digital, but with like the specifications of like turn off anything auto, turn off all symmetry, don't give it the perfectionist like of a digital sculpt, mess up, because that's the beauty of a hand sculpted piece. There's just slight imperfections. It's the thing that makes it feel like a life.
So speaking of bringing these characters to life,
Mhm.
one of the things that's so important to this is the story. Is the story behind them, and it's a very unique take on that kind of like it kind of toes that line of sort of like a gross out toy, kind of like the California raisins, like
Yeah,
because you
somewhere
have
in
like
that Mad Balls Food Fighters
yeah, like
genre.
it exists somewhere in that world. So tell us, how did you come up with the story for 9 to 5 Warriors?
So yeah, when I started this project, by the way, for those like, it's not new, it's not coming out like this year. It's been 10 years in the making. So literally 10 years ago, when I decided like I want to make this toy, I want to create that feeling. I literally did my due diligence. Like, okay, like why am I feeling that way when I'm purchasing these things? Is it memories? Is it nostalgia? Like, what was it? And it just came down to story. And like, I really resonated with the characters. Whether it's GI Joe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, X-Men. Like the core of my real heart of my childhood collection was those 3 right there. And they of course had Saturday morning cartoons or to follow, basically 30-minute commercials. But when I decided to like focus on, or when I decided to make a toy, I had no idea where to start. Like I'd be naive and DM someone like, hey, how can I make a toy? Like what factory can I use? Like I had no idea of anything. And of course they left me on red or like just gave me bad advice or whatever. So I started with what I knew, and again, being my film background, I kind of just know story writing and script writing, and I just surely but slowly, like just started working on all the characters, all the backstories, and I know like stories usually good with tension and whatnot. So like I just started creating the drama within that, and through whatever means I can actually create, which was basically trading pack cards and comics book. Because at the end of the day, like toys were just so far down the pipeline, I just didn't know where to start.
But how'd you end up in an office setting? That I
Okay,
think
so
that's like a fun. I mean, sure, it gives you a bunch of these, inanimate objects to, an anthropomorphize, or whatever, make them anthropomorphic. Yeah. So how did you end up there?
so being in that creative field, I'm rarely in the office, but one summer I had to work an office job and I wanted to like blow my head off. Like it just was so boring. And I literally was just like kind of actually started playing with things around me that kind of reminded me as a kid when I was in school. I used to create my own action figures from the school supplies. So Major Eraser, for instance, is a genuine character I used to create. I'd stick a thumbtack in like a pink eraser, draw on a crappy face, and use paper clips as the arms and legs. So when I came of thinking of like I want to create a toy, I looked at a lot of classics I love, like Ninja Turtles, Food Fighters, and like I remember those battles I used to have, even with the toys I would create, and especially Food Fighters. Like I was pissed as a kid I discovered them when I was like in 1993, so they were already discontinued.
Mhm.
They were already technically vintage almost, and I discovered them randomly, and they quickly became one of my favorites. And they tied in really well with like the monsters I would create with the school supplies. So when I thought of like, oh, I'll create a toy, those ideas came straight to like the front of my mind, and it kind of really all came really like gushing out of me. Like I was asked this question the other day, and I was like, I like honestly, this is like the easiest part for me because of my 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 history, I guess, and it was also the most fun to like just really just like what this squad needs, an explosion specialist. He needs to be goofy. This guy needs to be a mechanic. This guy needs to this and that. So everything just started connecting really quickly.
So you're telling an original story, which is awesome. What are some of the challenges when trying to break into a market with a new story that people aren't already familiar with?
Damn. So it does suck. Like at the end of the day, like any new brand is trying to break into Instagram is like just trying to break someone's attention. I'm sure you guys experience this, like just selling the podcast. Like, who are these guys? Like, you just have to stay consistent. And like, what I found is, these toys in the bottom of my heart, like, I want them to be for kids growing up today. To market to a kid now is like extra hard, especially since there's no freaking Saturday morning cartoon. There's no programming to like inject these commercials. Um, so my thought process is I'll attract the adults who are now having kids themselves and grew up in the 90s, and I'll make these toys exactly the way I would want it. The tagline back in the day was like, this is a toy line that you never got as a kid but deserve as an adult. And that stays true in my heart, is that I'm just showcasing things that I really enjoy. I'm making things for myself, honestly. Like if I start sitting back and thinking like, oh, people like this, like people are mad that I'm using purple, for instance, and like it's like who cares? Like it's just like it works in that dynamic. Like think of it as a cartoon. There does nothing makes sense. Like but the bright colorful contrast is what like makes a character pop. And Major Eraser's freaking pink. I mean, this Major Eraser's purple. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, and you brought up Plunderlings before, and we've had Ricky on the show, but we at New York Comic Con, I stopped by their booth and was just kind of sitting and watching, um, as people walked by, and it was crazy to think like, because sure, like a couple times parents walked by with their kids, and their kids are like, "Whoa, what are these?" Like,
Yeah.
because they have that like cherubic little mischievous look to them. And if you've ever spoken to Ricky before, he once he starts talking about the Plunderlings, he doesn't stop. And he had these kids like their full attention, but then like a couple times the kids would be like, where can I watch Plunderling?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, because
Uh,
the kids, I think these days are kids these days. They're they're so connected
yeah.
to kind of everything. Like I
Yeah.
have a 7-year-old, and the number one thing on her Christmas list this year is like a smartwatch. And it's like, well, like time out. Like you're 7. Like don't you want like a cool like toy or something? Like I'm not getting you a smartwatch. Um and I think they're just so used to being connected that like that's why some of these things that are familiar wrestling figures, Batman, Spider-Man, they're everywhere. Like the properties are everywhere and it's so saturated. They almost like can't miss.
Yeah.
So I think you're in a position where you have this background in, video production, and, you're telling this unique story, and, the design of the figures are like we said, kind of toe that like gross attention grabbing design. I think you're in a unique position to, potentially get that story out there and, attract people to the toys.
100%. And so my also the approach has been doing these commercials that are very much in line with the 90s nostalgia style of like cheesy narrator. And I'm experimenting going further and further, like making longer form videos. Like the last like long form, of course, being like 2 minutes. But the last two I did was like really just went into I gotta introduce the entire lineup. So I go through like introducing the water cooler commandos, who are the good guys. And I went through like each one, Major Racer, a one liner, Lieutenant Lead, a one-liner, Brigadier Bouncy, a one-liner. And so now I am going to keep like developing that exactly, like just do what I know best of making these videos, these commercials in that style, because again, it's what's true to my art, like what I enjoy making and looks cool. It fits the theme, because modern day toy commercials, like they're kind of weird. Like they tiptoe the line of like trying to have excited kids and like kind of reflect back to the 90s, like, oh yay, come on, I can do this. Like, and it's like, what the hell? This is kind of weird. But you instantly add that VHS filter, or you play with I think it's also the fact that these characters look like they're in a straight like the 90s, and they have the animation that looks like it's in the 90s, that it just all flows. And I'm getting just really good responses, and like people are getting the story and like really sending me DMs like, oh my god, I love Corporal Can, this and that. And like, holy shit, like I was scared about Corporal Can. It's literally a can of nuts. Like I was really worried about, like, first off, how am I gonna make a toy out of that? That's like a whole different story. And it worked out really well, because the inspiration behind the Corporal Can is like the old army men buckets. You pop open the bucket and there's like the army men things that you plant around your room. You're like espionage, and you're like, you have your own tactical things. And that was the thought process put into Corporal Can. And I'm like super happy that it's actually resonating with people and they're getting it, and they're like, it's the top seller. And I was like, what the fuck? That's crazy.
Awesome.
Now, speaking of top seller, this line is available exclusively on Big Bad Toy Store. How did you form that partnership?
So it's not exclusively. I left it open so that they also warn, like, they don't know if their reach can help me get it across the line, because technically it's a Kickstarter without the Kickstarter. I am still needing to raise the X amount of funds to get these figures across the line and produce. The good thing is, if you kind of are on the fence, by the way, if like you're thinking of pre-ordering, like Big Bad Toy Store doesn't charge you until they're shipped. So that's probably not until summer of 2023. So if you're interested, putting the trigger and making a pre-order helps it like show the demand and helps me get that finish line. But the partnership started like last year. I failed my first Kickstarter. I didn't know what I was doing. Going back to like, how do you break into a new market? I started Kickstarter at like, and it gives you like a 30-day timer that I just naively like, oh yeah, 30 days sounds right. And on that day, I started marketing. Like usually for a Kickstarter, you have to do like 6 months to a year prior. So I started marketing it. People didn't freaking reach out to me or hear about it until like day 28. So ultimately it failed. But a lot of the feedback I got was, can you make more characters? And Joel, I reached out to him back then to, help get the pre-orders of the Kickstarter through. And he and I just started talking. I asked him for advice, basically, what he thinks would sell. He agreed with more characters. And from there, like, I just started developing, taking this time, this whole year, to really just get the prototypes in the right state, create enough assets. And now they're on Big Bad Toy Store.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
This segment is brought to you by our friends at Chubsy Wubsy Toys. A traditional mom-and-pop toy store in Little Falls, New Jersey, Chubsy Wubsy Toys brings you the best new toys from the brands you love without the hassle of pounding the pavement searching for them at larger retail stores. Visit them in person at 106 Main Street in Little Falls, New Jersey, or online at ChubsyWubsy.com. That's ChubsyWubsy.com. And tell them Adventures in Collecting sent you.
Pop into a new career with CGC, the world leader in pop culture collectibles grading. CGC is seeking world-class Funko Pop experts to lead a new division dedicated to authenticating and grading collectible toys. This is an incredible opportunity to help build a new grading service in a hot collectibles category. Think you can play the part? Apply today at cgcgrading.com/careers. That's cgcgrading.com/careers.
So, Eric, I ran to the store today and I was doing that power walking thing to the toy aisle. The guy next to me was too. And guess what happened?
You were both headed for the same figure, weren't you?
Yep, but I got there first.
Now that's a close shave.
You know what else is? A nice trim thanks to this show's sponsor, Manscaped.
You're dang right, Dave. And that's the kind of close shave I can get behind, and you all should too. I just use the Mower 4.0 with its cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof and also has a 4000K LED spotlight if you need a more precise shave.
And if you thought that was good, you can take your grooming game even further. You can take it to the next level. The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer.
And don't forget about their Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner. They'll change the way you approach your hygiene routine. Trust me when I say this, guys. Your balls will thank you.
Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. Get 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code AIC at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 14 million balls.
That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com with code AIC. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
And now, back to the show.
So like you mentioned, there is a crowdfunding element to this.
Yeah.
How are the pre-orders going so far in terms of, getting towards your production goal and kind of, is there a end date? Like, is there a cutoff?
Yeah, so I'm for some figures I'm right at the 50% line right now, which is awesome. There is a cutoff date of January, but that's a cutoff date for Big Bad Toy Store. I made it limited time for Big Bad Toy Store. I really was hoping that I could probably reach all my demand through Big Bad Toy Store, and that's just really out of ease. Like, the reason I didn't do Kickstarter is like I don't want a pallet shipped to me from China and then figure out distribution. That's just a headache I really didn't want. And Big Bad Toy Store handles that really well. They got the fulfillment locked down, and it just made sense to me. Like, if I can just ship once to one place and they distribute to everyone, then it makes my life easy. But come January, I'll open up if I don't reach my goal. I really do hope I reach my goal by then, just again out of the ease. But yeah, from that point on, I need 500 of each character to be pre-ordered. And like I said, I'm close to the 50% mark. And essentially, once that happens, then I move into production for China through China.
So now is it kind of like an all or nothing thing? Like, if a couple of the characters hit that goal, will those characters get produced and the others won't, or is it?
I got the mindset of like, I'm gonna find a way to make this happen at this point. Like, I've gotten really good reception. I'm falling in love with them more and more. Like, now that they're all made and like out of my mind, and into my hands, like I'm like, shit, this is awesome. I really want this for myself at the end of the day. Like, I really hope I can get these manufactured to be done properly the way they're intended. So I'm going out all the stops, as an entrepreneur, like I'm hustling, seeing what I can barter. Everyone needs video. I'm busting my ass to even self-fund this. Like, I made it happen, and it's expensive endeavor. And I'm just, once I have my eye on the prize, like I'm just trying to make it happen.
So outside of the 10 featured characters, are there more in the works for a wave 2? Should wave 1 go into production?
Yeah, 100%. So the beauty of, we didn't even talk about the story, but the main character, the main bad guy is Colonel Custard, and essentially his demeanor is he's out for total office domination. So his mindset is, as a delicious donut that he was before he was created, some office worker took a bite out of him, said yuck, spit it out, and tossed him in the trash because he goes stale. So once he was sparked to life, he held that resentment against his humanity, like stupid, wasteful humans. So he's all set out on searching for Jensei, which is the energy drink that created them all, to create new minions along the way and essentially take over the office and if not the world, So there will be lots more characters, endless characters, as 90s cartoons eluded us. Like, the bad guys always somehow get away. So as far as series 2, I definitely want to get into army builders. I got a lot of requests there. So I have some ideas on the works, like these egg style characters that could be sold in 3 packs. And then the stapler remover supply seekers, which basically are like chompers. And they're
Nice.
That was
so
always the best toy. Everyone always wanted the stapler remover. I mean, it was just basically like a built-in monster to begin with.
there you go. So those are the the first base ideas. Of course, there's going to be new characters, but my focus right now is like these 10. People are already asking for freaking play sets and vehicles. I'm like, you don't know how expensive this is, man. Let me get these through the line. I promise. Let these happen. Oh my god, it's game over. Then it's like then it becomes fucking fun and throwing shit on the wall to see what sticks. Like my version of that, you know? This is my version of this. This is my version of that.
I mean, it's one thing, doesn't matter how big or small, your toy production is. People that are just casual collectors, they don't realize what goes into making a toy. And,
Hmm.
if there's one thing we've learned in the, 3 years of doing the show is there's a lot. So, it's great that everyone is excited and wants, a playset and a car and my gears are already spinning of what that would even look like for 9 to 5 warriors, but like let's get wave one out the door first.
No, and it's I want to educate people on the process because I think that's a huge thing that like going back to Ricky, like Ricky and I are brothers at this point. I love that guy. Like we met a year ago too. It turned out he ended up like kind of moving to Miami where I'm at now. And so it's great to like work alongside of we have two completely different lines, but we still have like I'm glad you brought that up. It's like they have such charisma and that to me is just the imagination pouring through it. And he's got like passion for days. And it sucks to hear, fans, the first thing is like, oh, my figures, by the way, I made them $25. Don't ask me how. I'm losing money on every single one, but I wanted them to be as low as possible so they are accessible. And people, the first comment I saw on Twitter was like, $25? That's crazy. This is I get my Marvel Legends. I'm like, bro, do you realize that Marvel Legends and Hasbro talk to Mattel? They're the ones that are charging still $30, $45 a figure that are getting away with it. Like me charging $25 when it should be 40, unfortunately. It's like realistically the amount of money that goes into the tooling, all this other stuff, like that's what sucks. Is that I'm just trying to get these out the gate, and then unfortunately there's such a high cost through that. But I think people once they educate themselves like on the process and start, supporting these indie makers because that's what's exciting, seeing what other people are making and bringing to the table. And I felt like where the larger companies are lacking right now and kind of just recycling ideas and seeing what's like they can redo right now. These guys, the Rickies, freaking Fox Forge Toys, futuristic combat soldiers, there's Dimension X, like there's such a cool underground like saying like underground like storms brewing of like creativity and people just putting out fucking cool toys. But of course they're limited, they could only do maybe a 40 run or a 100 run. And then of course the price of the figure becomes like an artwork, it's like $125. Still worth it, but it sucks that like you want those figures to reach the numbers that like that justify or make it that Marvel legend, status.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's two different ways to cash in on nostalgia. Is telling the story that's been told already, and like there are many lines out there that are successfully doing that. GI Joe, we've mentioned it before, but like wrestling is like constantly putting
Hmm.
out like a new wrestler like alongside of a legend or somebody from 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's one way to cash in on nostalgia, and then the other way is to take the part of the like what you guys are doing, where you're taking kind of like those feelings and you're kind of morphing them into and molding them into a new story that kind of brings you back to that time period. And like you said, it's for indie toy makers, it's definitely an uphill it's an uphill battle. And I think the more we kind of get these stories out there, and the more that we kind of pull back the curtain, right, and show what it takes to actually make a toy from start to finish, I think that's important for people to know.
No, and that's what's cool. Like that's why I started listening to you guys. Like, like I appreciate like getting that insight, seeing discovering new trends, like discovering new players on the field too, and just understanding also. There's the middle ground. The cells that are not quite there, and even the Super Sevens that I feel like surpassed that middle ground. Now they're a larger player, but they're still producing small runs. But it's just cool to also see like the next progression. I would love to, get to that status. Like 9 to 5 Warriors is just a start. Nothing I do will always be in that 90s realm, but this was special to my heart of like just a passion project that like the show is, or if the show ever does exist, the show will be set in the 90s. It will be a period piece. And it's because it's just true to my heart. Like that was something I loved. I could talk about that for days. But the next things, like, I would love to get into different action figures altogether and just making cool toys again. Like, just whatever creativity I have in here, and just put it out there and give it a shot.
Well, the thing that I like that strikes me too with these is like, you think of the creativity that you see, and it kind of matches in a way like everybody's creativity. Like, how many times did you use like a coffee lid as something, or paper clips, or rubber bands, or anything along those lines? Like a stapler is a very articulated thing, like or cassette tape covers, like stuff like door cases. That stuff was accessories when there was no other accessories. So to see it turn into this toy line that's built out of this stuff that you think of in one way, and it's now this other thing, that in itself is just something that's just so you know remarkably brilliant. For like, it's that thing where you look at it and you go, how has nobody thought of this? It's just it's so remarkably brilliant.
Thank you, thank you. Honestly, that's like that means a lot. Like honestly, I'm just trying to, as I said, like respark imagination. That to me, I know fidget spinners and fidget toys are like on the rise of like as we just try, whether it's easing anxiety or just trying to like get away from the craziness of our world. Like the idea of putting these in your cubicle or home office or in your kitchen, whatever the hell, like that's what's cool with the scale. They work anywhere. And if you can take that moment to like play with your toys or just feel like just get lost in the story and take that. I've heard people, sending me DMs already of like creating their own characters. And that's what's freaking cool. Is just like it's already happening, and I got to remember that too as a creator, because the first thing I'm gonna reach is imposter syndrome, and I'll start questioning: Is this fucking good? Is this good? Should it be purple? Damn it! So I don't know. I really mean it means a lot to hear that, because that's the ultimate aim at this end of the day. Just let's reignite that imagination and creativity of what toys originally did for all of us.
Mhm.
Imposter syndrome. It eventually comes for us all.
Also, I'm gonna tell you just everything. Never like deny something being purple. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
throw that
the
out there.
best things in life are purple.
Thank
Donatello, Prince,
thank you,
grape
thank you.
soda. Best things in life are purple. Listen, Brandon, before we let you go,
Yeah.
Dave, would you like to
Yes,
fulfill your role as this podcast's James Lipton and ask our final question?
absolutely. The final question that we ask to all of our guests: what is your favorite and/or strangest piece in your collection? It can be one of each, or it can be both.
I love it. Okay, so the strangers, I have this ready because I have no idea what the hell this is, and it's just called Butt Ugly Martians. And this was a thing I purchased specifically because of the packaging. And for those that are listening, it's basically a VHS across the top, like horizontally. Underneath is four miniature characters, well, six in total, and then a deck of cards spread out. And like that to me is like this is the ultimate packaging. Like if I can do something like this for 9 to 5 Warriors later on, like this is cool. So I never heard of the show. I think this was like in that phase of when 90s started getting ugly. You talking about my figures? Like there's like that big bad Beetle Borg or whatever the hell it
Yeah,
was called.
big bad Beetleborgs. Yeah,
There is some weird CGI mishaps that like kind of just are like, whatever, let's try it. But I think this was in that reign. If people know about it, please let me know about it. But Big But Ugly Martians was one of that. And just got it for the packaging. My favorite things, I think it's Exo Squad. I'm gonna have to say because I think I love the miniature scale of this, like the flat box opening, the cool mech thing. When Avatar came out, I was like, oh my god, that's Exo Squad, that machine, that's fucking cool. And I like instantly reminded me of that. And this was a cool toy. This was before, companies started getting sued for poking kids' eyes out because missiles actually fired. Like this shit would fire across the room like really well. And I don't know, these are some of my favorites growing up, the Exo Squad. If I can ever get into licensing, I will go ahead and do what I said, which sucks. Is like I will remake the Exo Squad. I will gladly remake that. Not because no one knows about it, because like that could be such a sick movie right now.
I'm honestly, there are a couple of toy lines that come up every now and then where people are like, "Oh man, I can't believe that that somebody hasn't like I don't know who has the Exo Squad license at this point, whether it's whether it's Mattel or Hasbro or somebody or nobody. Maybe it's nobody. But that's one of the ones that like I can't believe with like how much people love Gundam and
Pacific Rim and
it
Avatar.
just it's
I know.
unbelievable that Exo Squad nobody has touched it.
I
The two that blow my mind, it's Exo Squad, and I still cannot believe nobody has remade Battle Beasts, especially with all of like the blind box like experiences that people have. Like blind
Yeah.
bagged Battle Beasts would be I can't imagine they wouldn't sell. But
the thing that blows my mind with that butt ugly Martians thing is like it's like, oh, you don't like figures? Well, cool. Here's a videotape. Oh, you don't like cartoons? Well, here's a card game.
it really is a
It's like
shotgun
hedging its
approach.
bets. It was like, here's everything. Like one of these.
The only thing it was missing was a pog.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, who knows? It could be stuck in there for all I know. That's what's cool. Oh man, one other toy line that should be remade to top this off. I mean, this is Bots Masters. You guys remember this show?
No.
Bots Masters, Bots, and like their call tag at the end was like, "It's laser time, boys!" And you put on 3D glasses, and it'd be fucking like a 3D spectacular battle fight. But that show as a movie today would be sick. It's basically like
Oh
this.
no, I do remember this.
It's sick. Like that storyline, the whole futuristic cyberpunk style, like that would be such a good movie right now. Let me make
This was a Saban
yeah.
joint here in the US. Yeah, I remember the Bots Master. Yeah, that actually would fly right
Those
now.
characters are sick. They're funny. There's just like, oh man, that everything about that is would be a really good show.
Dave, you would have loved this show. There was like I forget what his name was, but there was a robot that was like obsessed with baseball.
Yeah.
He had
I think
like
it's just called sports. It's just made it simple like that.
yeah.
Sports or something.
Yeah, I think his name might have been Sports. I think you're right. But he had like a robotic baseball bat, like a baseball glove. That's yeah. Man, I haven't thought
I'm
about
looking this up
Botsmaster in a
now.
while.
You can't beat simplicity. Like people are like, what's the eraser guy's name? I'm like, Major Eraser. Like it's simple. You hopefully you won't forget it, the end.
Oh, this
Ugh.
was made by co-created by Avi Arad and the guy
Yeah.
who created Inspector Gadget.
It totally has that vibe.
Yeah, it was a good card. I'm gonna have to go on YouTube and go down the rabbit hole on this because I haven't
I
watched it in
wanna,
like forever.
yeah, I wanna try to see this.
I'm honestly surprised that that Dan Larson hasn't done an episode
Botsmaster?
on Botsmaster yet. Might have to tweet him.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll be down to be part of that. That's awesome. Like they used to have it on, if I'm not mistaken. I'm kind of getting mixed with Exo Squad, but before Hulu got crazy popular, like a few years back, like they had either Exo Squad or Bots Master streaming on that, and now they took it off. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, it's probably sitting on like Pluto or Tubi. one of those free to watch ones. Well, Brandon, before we let you go, man, where can we tell our listeners where can they learn more about 9 to 5 Warriors, and more importantly, where can they pre-order?
9to5warriors.com is probably the easiest. Everything's there. You can learn the story of each character. There's tons of videos. There's like all the links go to Big Bad Toy Store, where you'll have to pre-order if you're interested. And again, if you're on the fence or you're like kind of short on cash or whatever, don't stress it yet, because I know it's during the holiday season. Like, thankfully, nothing gets charged until it ships, and it'd mean the world to me if you guys support it. So thank you guys.
All right, Brandon. We'll make sure we include links to those, links to the website, and of course, on social media, in our episode description. Thank you so much for stopping by and telling us about 9 to 5 Warriors, man.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, guys.
Dave, send us home.
Bye, everyone. We'll see you for episode 100.
Thank you, dear listener, for hanging out with us today. Subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen, and then tell your friends to do it. Thanks also to Joe Azari, the golden voice behind our intro. Our music is Game Boy Horror by the Zombie Dandies. Find more about them both in our show notes.
Follow us on social media at AIC_podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Stop by and say hi, show us your toy hauls, and share your toy stories. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode.
Don't try this at home. Void where prohibited and some assembly required. Each sold separately, not a flying toy. Consult a physician if your toy run exceeds more than 4 hours.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.